All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. I'm here with a guest who is new to the podcast. I feel like I've heard your name a number of times over the years. Just like I like to kind of watch all the local events I can find, just to see what's happening, who's playing, what's going on. And your name has showed up a few times, but I don't know too much about what you do. I've been listening to your music sort of in advance of this conversation. But
Yeah,
I think the best way to start this off is if you want to introduce yourself, give a bit of background about what you do as an artist, and we can take it from there.
my name's Brett Schulz. I'm a local from here in Winnipeg. I've been probably playing music for most of my life, writing and singing probably for the last 6, 7 years, and
Okay.
performing with my like I do when I started performing, I did lots of like restaurant gigs or people wanted a party or something, hire a musician. I had a friend with Jeff Riley. He moved to Ontario, but anyway, we used to do parties together and stuff,
Okay.
and then yeah, and they've been doing lots of stuff with my band and writing and yeah, just playing around a bit.
Cool, cool. And I guess like this is the question that everyone hates, but how do you define the sound of what you play? I mean, I know we're in an era where everything has so many different subgenres,
I
and it
know.
is a tricky question. But like, do you have a an easy way to define what you do?
Well, people do say it's like easy listening, bluesy, um, kind of like soulful, um, chill. I've heard those words used a lot. People have compared it to um, like James Taylor or John Mayer or something like that, but I don't know
Yeah.
if I necessarily agree with that. But
Well, what do you
yeah.
think of it as? Do you have like is there when you hear your own music, do you have something in mind of whether it's the style you're trying to do or just what naturally comes out?
Sometimes, like with vocal, like I feel like when I'm singing a song, I'm often hearing a certain vocalist in my head. Like sometimes it's Bonnie Raitt, and I'm just love the way
Okay.
she sings. And then I'm thinking, oh man, I kind of envision her singing it when I write the words. Sometimes not necessarily always her, but sometimes it's other singers. But when the songs come out, like when I grew up and I started learning guitar, it was like lots of hard rock music, like Aerosmith, Guns N' Roses,
Okay.
Zeppelin. That's what I grew up learning on guitar. But then when I started singing and songwriting, the genre was like Americana, folk, country. For some reason, I don't even know why. I didn't even listen to a ton of that kind of music, but lots of blues music growing up. So I think lots of artists like Bonnie Raitt, for example, where it comes
Yeah.
back to a blues root, it really feels like more my element.
Well, that's interesting. You mentioned the hard rock stuff because that was where I was going to ask next is sort of what you grew up listening to. And if it's not from that, I mean, if you grew up listening to
Yeah.
this harder stuff, where does this blues, easy listening, chill, whatever you want to call it, where does this sound come from? How did you sort of develop this? If it wasn't, I mean, because usually you have someone who's in a metal
Yeah.
band, they grew up listening to metal their whole life. This is the natural thing for them to play, right? But where did this come in for you?
So I grew up in Altona. That's just like an hour-ish south of the
Yeah.
city. And they had a bit of a strong blues community there. There was lots of like passionate people that, tried to get good bands coming up from like the Fargo Blues Fest, and they would host
Okay.
them in the town. And they would even try to put together a festival for a few years. So there was always lots of blues music around there. And my parents were friends with some musicians that would play in some local blues bands too. And those guys were very gracious to like take me under their wing when I was
Yeah.
young and let me jam with them and show me stuff. And at the same time, I was a huge fan of Slash, and he's a really comes back from the blues as well. So like
Sure.
I used to just watch tons of interviews and solos of him and then just digest it. And then when I learned how to play when I was with my guitar teacher and he would teach me like how to we're learning improvisation and stuff. And I remember the first time I played a blues scale and I was like, hang on, this sounds like something Slash did. I guess that's how I
Right.
do
That
it.
was like the Rosetta Stone for you, right? Figuring out sort of
Yeah,
where to go. Yeah, yeah, that's
yeah.
cool. That's cool. How long have you been in Winnipeg then? If you were from Altona originally?
Since 2017 full time, and before that, it would have been like 2015. I was here for school.
Okay, okay. So what was your sort of entry point to the local music scene then? I mean, because I mean, Winnipeg does have a very strong blues
It
scene,
does.
and I mean, even some of the other stuff you're talking about, the Americana folk singer-songwriter type of vibe, that's also really big here. So did you find sort of uh, a place in Winnipeg where you, whether you were playing or just listening, where you felt you fit in?
Yeah, I would say for me that place was probably the Cavern, where like they used to have those soul nights
Yeah.
every Tuesday night or something like that. And I remember because I've always been a really huge Brothers Landreth fan, and I somehow discovered that Joey Landreth played in one of those funk bands, and I didn't. I was like, really? You plays in a funk band? I was like, okay, I'll go check it out. And then I go there. It's like a Tuesday. It's like 11 p.m. And then I go there, and then sure enough, there he is. And then at that point, that's kind of what got me to that venue. With, and I discover all these other artists like Todd Martin, Joe Curtis,
Right.
Kevin Waters, Dave Landreth, and then I think there's even Aaron Shore. Like this whole just roster of amazing musicians. My first time was really seeing them all for that Dr. Hawkbottom gig at a Soul Night. And then at that point, I that kind of opened my eyes to what all is in Winnipeg for artists. It just kind of started there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's an interesting entry point because I'm always curious when someone isn't from here because
Yeah.
I'm from here. I know sort of all the venues and stuff I went to as a teenager or snuck into when I was too young or whatever, right? And it's sort of the same with a lot of people
Yeah.
in my age anyway from the city. But when you're coming from sort of anywhere outside the perimeter, it's always a different story because people have to find. You don't sort of just grow up with it, right? You got to actually find
Oh yeah.
where to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. Unless you know somebody and it sort of and introduces you around or it gives you oh you should go check out this place or this band. Like otherwise you wouldn't know. It would just be
Yeah,
random.
you just wander in somewhere and hopefully find a good
Yeah.
band
And
playing. Yeah.
that's kind of how it felt for me anyway. Yeah. Wandering.
So at what point then, from that point, you mentioned earlier you've been playing music for a long time. You had these experiences jamming with some of these guys, and all that. But when did you start sort of developing a solo act? When did you start becoming the type of performer you are now?
Well, I think maybe like when I was 21, I really had an urge to write.
Okay.
I really wanted to sing songs. Before then I was only just playing guitar and not singing. And for some reason I always felt like I wanted another tool to express the music that I wanted to project. And it was just fascinating to me, the whole process of how to produce a song from scratch and how to write a song. And like, it was always really interesting. And yeah, it took a long time to get comfortable in it, like with anything. Like, because
Yeah.
I was a guitar player for probably like over 10 years before I even tried to sing a song. So like I
Okay.
was always had that, I was comfortable with that. But then to sing it was like so unnatural and it took a while, but I'm glad I stuck with it because it feels really I just feel fortunate to be able to make music. It just feels good to play and to sing and to
Yeah.
play for people or even just to be able to make songs at home. It's just a lot of fun.
Does the songwriting process? I mean, as someone who started off as a guitar player and was a guitar player for, I mean, still a guitar player, but was
Yeah.
strictly playing guitar for a long time. How do you write songs today? I mean, do you start, is guitar still sort of your main starting point for putting music together, or since you've
Yeah.
added the vocal aspect of it, has that changed your sort of procedure?
It's very much been guitar orientated. I tend to start with some kind of a melody of chords, maybe. But often the way it's sung, it's weird because like I'll have like a melody in my head with no words, but it's like no 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 whatever it is, and then that I can't out of it. Then for some reason I kind of the song usually starts with that. It's like there's a melody with no words necessarily, and then a progression, like maybe a chorus or something. Not
Okay.
always a chorus, but yeah, it tends to be that way. And then my brain's always kind of really listen to chords and chord structures of songs before words.
Okay.
I've just always been that way. I don't know why, but I noticed that first. And I usually get my emotional connection to music when I'm listening to music from the chord changes before the words do anything for me. So as a songwriter, it's been challenging to try and even though I love listening to the chord changes, it's like I want to focus on what other singers are singing and their words so I can learn from what they're doing to maybe try and utilize that in my own writing.
Yeah. How that's an interesting way of listening to music. I mean, I think a lot of people do take in the music as well as the lyrics, but yeah, I think that for the most part, people are focusing more on the vocals and the lyrics just because we're humans and it's a human voice, right? I think that's
Yeah.
the natural brain connection there. But do you so how important are the lyrics to you then, given the way you listen to music? I mean, could the lyrics be saying nothing but sound and it would work with you, or did have you sort of progressed to sort of recognizing, I guess, the importance of
Yeah.
poetic lyrics or deep lyrics or meaningful lyrics.
I
Not that
think,
you didn't
yeah,
before, but I'm sure. But you know,
sure. That's a good question. I really think, and I actually think about that often because I always often wonder how other artists who might think about it the other way around, like the
yeah,
words are just the front of everything, how they would interpret their experience with writing. Um, I think they're very important. If I were to just throw random words over other songs I've written, I probably wouldn't have liked the songs so much. Like I really do enjoy writing lyrics. Like
okay,
it can be fun. It can be really frustrating sometimes, like when nothing's clicking. But when I have had experience writing a song and it really just feels like the words fit and then it's like change a little this, a little that, just to kind of tailor it to the verse or whatever.
yeah,
It is really fun, and it's way more meaningful in the end when I feel like I found the right word choice or the right phrase or something like that. So yeah, it's definitely an important thing. I just found it more of a challenge to learn how to develop it because of the fact that I don't feel like I paid enough attention to uh, lyrics in the past.
right. Has that changed as a listener though? Like, do you pay more attention
Yeah,
now that
I think so.
you sort of doing it
Yeah,
yourself?
I think so. Yeah, I think I find it more interesting now to like pay attention to what they're saying and how they're phrasing it and how much space they're leaving in between words.
Sure.
Yeah, like I'll definitely notice it more now. Yeah.
Well, the reason that we're doing this now, I mean, at the time we're recording this, is because you have a new record coming out imminently. I guess later this month, if you're listening to this interview at the time we're doing it. But what can you tell me about the new? It's an EP, right?
Yes, it's an EP. So it's called Reasons, and the reason it's called it is because the title track is going to be called Reasons, and then there's a second song called Say. And those two songs I wrote. Well, Say is actually quite old. Say is probably like a year and a half, maybe even 2 years old in terms of when I wrote it. Reasons I wrote it last fall, and
Okay.
both of the songs they're finally produced and mixed and mastered and all done. And then I was always thinking I really like these songs. I want to sit on them and wait to have maybe 8 songs, and then come up with a marketing plan and
Right.
maybe make a music video. But then like time just kept passing, and I was tired of just sitting on these songs for so long, and I felt I should stop putting the pressure to just wait and just maybe it might be a cool idea to release them
Yeah.
now and then because I have other songs written now and that are also kind of in the works. So maybe my plan is then next year I'll have another EP of maybe 2 songs, and then perhaps several months after that another maybe it'll be a then the album will drop and there'll be some new songs. I was thinking just mini EPs to eventually create an LP.
Makes sense. It makes sense. And that's sort of the way people are doing it now too. I find is they're releasing
Yeah,
whether it's singles or just a handful of songs at a time, and just because the
yeah.
distribution method is so different than it was even
Well,
10
yeah,
years ago.
like it's not like it has to be pressed on vinyl or on a CD. It's just digital, right? So there's logistically it makes no difference. And I maybe some listeners prefer to take in a couple of new songs at a time. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Either way works for me. I like going into an album or just a song too. But
Sure.
this release will have 2 extra goodies with it. It'll have so I think last fall I did a session at No Fun Club and we did
Cool.
one of the songs that will be a brand new song. We did an acoustic version of it live with a video and in the studio, and we also did an acoustic version of a song I released last year called "Your Life Is a Mess." So there's two. The audio from those videos will be on the EP as well.
Oh, cool. Okay. So
Yeah.
that's an interesting way to do it. I like the idea of repurposing content like that, right? Like you have the video as one thing, but then you might, if you have the audio from it, you might as well, right? It doesn't hurt to make it available as
Yeah.
an audio
Yeah.
only.
Why not?
Yeah. I know you have music that's come out before this. For people who are familiar with your older songs, how has this changed? I mean, what are people going to notice different about this EP than maybe some of the previous releases you've had?
Well, I like for me, that's a hard question to answer because all of my songs, I've always been the one who mixes them, and so because I have such a biased interpretation of them, because like I like when you're mixing, you're spending like a lot of hours just
Of
listening to the
course,
same thing.
over
You
and
end up
over and over.
having
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, you end up maybe like resenting things about it or like, oh, I'm just tired of hearing this. But for me, I feel like the production value, because I feel like every time I mix a song, I learn a couple things and then improve a little bit. I'm proud of these mixes. I'm proud of the songs. I think I've never felt so like for the songwriting itself, I feel like the words and the music really matched up the way I wanted them to.
Okay.
I I like that for one of the songs I kind of honed in a little bit more on my blues roots a little bit. And I found because lots of the times in the past when I was writing songs, I could never find ways to put blues in them that I wanted to because when I play live with my band, like we're just shredding blues solos all the time and it's fun, but like
Yeah,
to put that into a song that feels like authentically me was kind of fun. So there's a song that kind of has that and it's groovier. It's got more of like a almost kind of like a country sort of outlaw vibe, which is unique for what I've written in the past.
sure.
There's another song that's also more of a ballad, and it's I wrote it for my wife. It is definitely a love song, and it's a very intimate song. And about that song, what I'm proud about is that, in my opinion, it doesn't sound too cheesy, which I think is really hard when you're writing
I
songs
think
about
so.
love.
I think so. Yeah, yeah.
Perhaps it's very cheesy. I don't know, but I didn't think it was too bad. But I was also happy with. I had some featured artists on there actually. Austin Perahoniak, he played slide guitar
Oh,
on that
cool.
song. So just so beautiful. I can't wait for people to hear that.
Cool, cool. And then like you mentioned a few minutes ago, the mixing aspect of it. I assume that the reason you've been sort of mixing your own material is just out of necessity, right? Is it
Yeah,
do you
yeah,
have oh
it's
sorry,
a
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I think like for me, I when I have money that I'm gonna spend on a project, I lately my process has been to hire a drummer and a bass player, my friends who I've been working with, like John Barron and Daniel Waugh. Those guys, they're phenomenal musicians, and it's really convenient because they can get together at Dan's place. He has his own home studio,
Cool.
and they can track to the stuff I send them. They can send it back to me. But yeah, and like mixing, it's like an art in itself, and I in a perfect world, I would outsource it. But I think if I made myself feel like I had to outsource the mixing, I probably wouldn't be able to release as much music because it's just expensive.
Yeah, it definitely, yeah, yeah. Do you think if you get to a point where you're able to outsource it though, do you think that you will be able to let go of that aspect of it, or do you want to let go of that aspect of it? Like how I guess how tied are you to that element of the recording and production process?
Oh, yeah, I if the money wasn't a factor, I would outsource mixing for sure, like all the time. I think it would probably give me a little bit of a break because I wouldn't have to like worry so much about that of the song. I could just simply focus on okay, what instrument should go here, or what kind of part should I play here, and not so
Yeah.
much how do I make the low end not sound crappy over there.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So where this album comes out what, the 29th, is that right?
Yeah, the 29th.
So how can people hear your music? I mean, the good thing about this being a podcast is someone, I say this on every episode almost, but someone could hear this the day it comes out, in which case the EP is going to drop in a few days, or they could hear it a year from now,
Sure.
and by then, who knows what you got going on. What's the best way for people to find your music, and not only just find the music, but also find out what you're doing as far as upcoming shows, upcoming releases, and things like that?
Sure. I think Instagram for like finding out what's going on. I definitely am the most active on Instagram, but I try to be pretty good with all the socials. Like if you go to my website, which is brettschultzmusic.com, that has links to all my socials. It has
Cool.
links to Bandcamp. And on Bandcamp, actually, I have all of my music there and you can listen to it for free, like on the website. Like it's, I think
Yeah.
that's how it's set up right now. So anybody can go there. Obviously, I appreciate people supporting it financially, but I'd rather just know that people can listen to it. Like all of the music can be found on YouTube for
Cool.
free. And of course, Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, it's everywhere, but it's also very accessible.
Yeah, that's good. I love Bandcamp. I'm not a streaming guy. Like I mostly listen to physical, almost entirely listen to physical
Oh
music.
yeah,
But Bandcamp is like the one digital kind of service that I actually will support because, like you said, I mean, people can pay the artist directly. You can buy merch on a lot of them directly.
sure.
It's
Yeah.
more a little bit more sort of it feels less corporate overlord sort of vibes.
Yeah. And I think they give a more fair cut to the artist too on Bandcamp.
Yeah,
And I think every so often they have like Bandcamp Fridays, if I'm not
they
mistaken.
do once a month.
And
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, and then it's 100%, I think, of sales, most sales go to the artist. And I like Bandcamp because I can put in all the credits there very nicely. So like I can put in all the credits for who played, all the credits for editing, mixing, all the credits for all the lyrics, right? I
Yeah.
can throw like all the info there. Like if somebody wants to know, it's nice to be able to find everything. So I try to like throw as much info about my music on Bandcamp as possible for those who want to know
Well, there are a few
the
of us still
specs.
who care about that stuff. I guess like
Yeah,
with something like Spotify though, that's not an option, right? People are just listening to it on a playlist, and they're not even
I know. Yeah,
necessarily even knowing the
yeah.
artist's name. I mean, if it just kind of goes by in the background.
For sure. And even on Spotify, the only thing you can really find out other than other artists on the song, if they were even labeled, than just the songwriting credit. And usually that's kind of just centered on one person. How I've noticed Spotify to be like it won't always show like the whole team of what's
Oh,
happening.
really?
It's hard
Okay.
to see. Yeah, it's hard
Okay.
to see credits on Spotify.
Do you do you expect at some point you'll be releasing physical albums, or is it just are you happy with sort of the digital world?
Well, actually in 2021, I released an LP called Frontline, and that was like my first ever project. It had
Okay.
7 songs, I think, and it was also self-produced and mixed, etc. And that I did print CDs for that, and it was kind of like a door-to-door thing. I directly messaged friends and family who I thought would be interested, made a big list, and I even delivered it, and that was really fun. And I was able to pay for itself, and it was just really odd to like see, oh, I have a CD with my face on it, and so it was really cool. And I still have a couple, I think, hanging around. But it's that now that you mention that, what I do really would hope to do is say next year sometime after I release this entire album, I would love to press it on vinyl, and
Yeah.
like that would be a dream for sure.
I think that's the dream for a lot of people. It's just so expensive and
Yeah,
time consuming and all that. But
it
yeah, I,
is.
I hope you
It
can pull it
is.
off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, for sure, for sure. Do you have anything coming up in the relatively near future as far as shows? Like, is there a release show for this EP or anything like that planned?
There's not exactly a release show, but I will be playing on that day actually at Smith Restaurant.
Okay,
So I'll probably play all the tunes there. That's a pretty chill gig that I play every couple months or so. It's in the lounge area at the and at the Forks there,
okay, yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's free to attend there. Yeah, so I'll definitely be playing the songs there, but it's not per se a release show or anything like that.
Right. Do you have any other notable shows happening sort of within the next few months, or should people just look at your
Yeah,
website and find them there?
if it can go on Instagram would be the best place to find. But here I do have my band will be playing on the January 18th at the Toad, and we definitely play lots of originals there and lots of
Cool.
like funk sort of songs. It's always a good time.
Awesome.